74 episodes ago, thanks to the tie-ins being included. Yeah, I really should have fixed that before I did Sonic FC story in hindsight. I started the show with the intent to do a better job at analyzing/giving my thoughts on the Pokemon movies I talked about in the garbage countdown I put out in 2013, and since then, I've finished the Pokemon movie marathon, settled the rivalry with Fawn, got a new ally, and settled down with the girl that I love. Which people thought happened in real life for some reason, despite this clearly being a different version of the real me, but whatever. And finally removed the Ring of Rage. But during this run, there was one thing that I was hyping up for a while, and I even promoted as a try-op, but I never did it. So, for this momentous occasion, I'm finally going to talk about it. So hello everyone, I'm David Grimm, and today I present to you the final arc of Fairy Tail, the Alvarez Empire arc. All 108 chapters of it. So, a few years ago, I saw the anime adaptation of the Fairy Tail series on Netflix, and I somewhat enjoyed it, but I read the rest of the series in manga form due to Netflix only having the first season. I bring this up because despite what I'm going to say in this review, I was, at one point, a fan of this series. What exactly is Fairy Tail about for those who haven't seen it before? Well, Fairy Tail focuses around a group of kids who are part of a magical guild, named, of course, Fairy Tail, who go on several adventures. Some are really simple tasks, like hunt a monster or stop a small damn crook, to serious events that could harm the world or a mission rescuing someone important. The series itself ran from 2006 until July of 2017, and while it did have some nice artwork and decent stories from time to time, the series does get a lot of heat for its use of fan service, the power of friendship getting overused as the show went on, and a bunch of terrible characters/storylines that persisted in almost every arc of the series. As the series went on, more characters joined the guild, and the stakes continued to escalate until the end of Tartarus, when the guild was disbanded and everyone left for a year before reuniting and reforming the guild without their guild master, Makarov. And here we are now. The guild is back together as well as their main characters. They've all gotten stronger over the last year, but as mentioned earlier, the former guild master is missing. So will this final arc be a good conclusion to the series? Will it answer all the questions? Well, according to a lot of the fans, no. So let's find out if I match that opinion, shall we? Now, as said previously, the Guildmaster of Fairy Tail has gone missing at this point in the final arc, so it's up to Natsu Dragneel and his group of friends to save him. Where did the Guildmaster go, however? Well, to another continent, Alakitasia, or more specifically, the country of Alvarez, to try and talk to its leader to not attack them. See, during previous events in this series, the Magic Council, who basically keeps the continent of Fiori in check, lost 2 items that tactically kept their country from getting invaded by Alvarez due to the items in questions getting deactivated or destroyed. But see, these talks don't go through because, well, the person running the Alvarez country is the series' main antagonist, Xerath Dragneel. This time, he means business, because he wants to invade the country the Fairy Tail Guild is in for the sake of getting the ultimate source of magic, Varia, which also has infinite magic all for himself in order to destroy Acnologia, another big bad in the series, and basically remove this curse he got in the past that prevents him from dying by going into the past and fucking with everything.
You know, with infinite magic and the power to alter time and space, you could just, put your soul into a body that's not cursed, or better yet, remove the curse yourself, right?
But yes, folks, we have a war arc on our hands, because that went over so well with Naruto's final arc, am I right? So yeah, the entire arc is basically Fairy Tail versus Alvarez, and then Acnologia shows up and effectively becomes the final boss, before the series ultimately ends with Natsu's group going on a 100-year mission, and that's about it. But yeah, it's a simple premise for this arc. Yeah, but it works, I guess. Then again, after doing this twice in the same series prior to this arc, I certainly hope the author knows by now how to make a war arc by this point. However, while the main premise is fine, there's a lot of stuff that goes on during this war on story that I really don't like. I won't address every single problem I have with this since that would take forever, and some of them are really minor complaints, but I'll try and address my biggest issues with this arc and explain why. So with this being a war arc, naturally the fights are one of the major elements of it. And the fights are are shit, especially the endings of them. What do I mean? Well, the Spriggan 12, or basically the secondary antagonists of the arc, were hyped up to an insane degree when the war arc first began, basically saying they are more powerful than the previously mentioned Tartarus Guild and every other guild they came up against, yet when the fights actually happen, our characters have little to any struggle defeating them, even one-shotting them at points. Sure, the other arcs prior to this have had shitty fights as well, but this is the final arc. This is where you're supposed to give it your all, and yet, it makes the same mistakes as past fights. One-shots, overhyped, terrible conclusions, or barely any attention to it. Hell, some of these fights were pointless in the grand scheme of things, since they had little to no impact outside of the number of Spriggan left, or could have happened by talking instead of fighting. For instance, while the Gajiel and Bradman/Bloodman fight certainly had impact since it resulted in the temporary death of Gajiel, most of the fights against the Historias added nothing aside from wasting pages. The Gotsarina vs Gildarts fight only showcased additional dragons Gotsarina had, and then he gets one-shotted, and all the little arcade fights just showcased either his abilities or a new form for Sting. Yeah, they were so impactful. Seriously, most of the Spriggan 12 could be cut out and not much would be missed. In fact, let me show you. Gotsarina contributed nothing aside from Megaloviania showing up and additional dragons, which really didn't mean much anyways, and as for the Megaloviania stuff, he was going to show up anyways. Nineheart basically wasted time and contributed nothing. He also brought back 3 of the Spriggan who died later, and their fights were fucking pointless. Wally Hito basically tried to kill people and failed miserably. Also, he somehow got Laxus's anti-magic particles removed for some reason. And frankly, Laxus could have easily had those particles removed in the ear gap without Wall's health, so he's useless as well. Also, fuck the ending of that fight.
I'm immune to lightning.
Oh yeah? Well, I got my trump card. It's lightning, but with a different color.
Ah, recolors, my one weakness.
Larkay didn't really contribute much, if anything. He felt more like a red herring to the true child of Mavis and Zeref plotline, so he's out. Jacob was able to determine a way to free Mavis due to her crystal getting cracked due to damage she got from him, but that could have been figured out by accident, frankly. And outside of that, he never contributes anything of worth to the story again, and that's it. The rest either had major contributions, or they were just tiny enough to survive my axe. So that is 5 members that could have been axed, and nothing would have changed in the grand scheme of things. And you know what's funny? The author's editor agrees with me. Yeah, according to Volume 52, the Spriggan 12 were supposed to be 5 to 6 members, but Hiro decided against it because he felt it had more meaning. Yeah, this coming from the guy who loves to draw a lot of cheesecake/fan service in this manga. Sure, okay. But yeah, like I said above, a fat load of good making 12 of them did, when a good chunk of the characters in the Spriggan 12 were worthless to the overall story and just took up page time. Just like when they brought back all the Spriggan members, including the defeated ones, 50 chapters into the arc to have another fight with Fairy Tail, and guess what? Most of them were defeated off screen. What was the point in bringing them back when you were just gonna beat them off screen anyways? This is wasting time and pages that could have been used for world building or character development or literally anything else but this. Hell, even the non-Spriggan fights like Gray vs. END or even the final fights with Zeref and Megaloviania are handled so poorly, since they're also guilty of too much hype and the final product ending incredibly poorly. Gray vs. END, which was hyped up since the final bits of the Tartarus arc, suffers from cutting away to crap that doesn't matter, and then ends with Urza showing up to block their attacks, and then reminding them of Makarov, quote-unquote, dying, and it snaps them out of it somehow. Gee, it's almost like this whole fight didn't matter or something if it could be resolved that fucking quickly. Natsu vs. Zeref suffers from overpowering the big bad by giving him an unnecessary transformation and overhyping this fight, on top of him being one-shotted. And Natsu vs. Aknologia suffers a similar issue of being overhyped, overpowered, and ending in one shot with the power of friendship and all the powers combined as an added layer of dumb. If you couldn't already tell, these 3 fights suffer from something a novice writer would do. Overhyping something to the point when you can't deliver on it, overpowering a character and being unable to find a way to defeat them reasonably, and or making the hyped up fight not freaking matter. Now with the novice writer, I'd give them a slight pass because this is an early work of theirs. Hiro Mashima, the creator of this series, has been writing manga for 20 years, starting with his one-shot Magician in 1998, all the way up to his newest work, Eden Zero. When you've been writing for 20 years, you clearly have experience under your belt, so I will not be holding my punches for this man as a result, because he should know by now that this kind of crap is not okay to do at this point in his career. But hey, at least they wrapped up the plot points of the series, right? Well, yes and no. While I do appreciate them finally answering the truth behind the death of Lucy's mother and the true origin of the Dragon Slayers and Natsu's origin, there were still some plot threads introduced and never resolved in this very arc that introduced it, or they don't make a lot of sense. For example, Aquarius returns to the world and explains that her key is somewhere in the world now, but Lucy doesn't find it all in this final arc. Yeah, that was clearly a good idea. Another example is explaining that Devil Slayer magic slowly makes the user go more and more insane. I'm sorry, but this feels like a dumb condition to put onto it. And yes, I can apply that same complaint to Dragon and God Slayer. They already have a nasty condition that it can only be super effective against the aforementioned dragon/god, so just apply to Gray, which, spoilers, they did. So there's no need to pull this slowly makes you more insane/evil crap. It's an unneeded addition, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to include since, as said previously, its main focus is, super effective on, ice-themed attacks and demons, while it does decent to neutral damage with everything else. That's already a good enough restriction, especially given how those two aren't that common in this freaking series. Oh, and there's also the curse Seraph has. It's barely explained further in this arc other than Mavis having it, and the more you love someone, the more it's taken away. Hell, it feels like there's more of a story with this Ankh Serum guy thanks to this arc, and by extension the Avatar arc, bringing up this thing that ultimately gets ignored due to this being the final arc. But is there anything else I found wrong with the story? Honestly, yes, but a lot of those problems are tied into the characters, so let's just jump straight into the character element and discuss my interconnected problems that I had with the story and, by extension, their characters. I never really cared for Natsu that much prior to this arc, since he came across as the generic main shonen lead with a big appetite and a big heart and strength and all that crap, but this arc really did him dirty. When he wasn't asleep or unconscious, nearing death throughout most of it, he's one-shotting the Spriggan 12, having a fight with Gray and a possessed version of END that he can just conveniently shut off when there's a block so whopping one attack, deciding to be human instead of dragon or demon, basically ignoring the whole END plot thread without much effort and making it feel really worthless in the long run, and basically ending the arc almost the exact same way as he started as a character, minus the seeds, almost as if the war didn't matter. I remember near the end of the Tartarus arc where he swore revenge against Saknologia for killing his quote-unquote dad and used that as personal motivation to get stronger, showcasing that the war in that arc did have an effect on him. Yeah, me neither. Also, he manages to beat Zeref and Akalogia, who can both alter time and, with Zeref's case, space, using the power of fire and his burning friendship. Is this a prank? Am I being pranked here? And since I brought up END, how about I talk about this arc screwing over Gray? While I did regret trying to kill END later on in the arc, I'm still not a fan of what they did to Gray in this arc, because if they weren't trying to add stupid restrictions to his devil-slaying powers that already existed, he was engaging in a fight with an ice mage with little to any history with Gray's past and or any personality. Now, I already went over how stupid the fight with END and Gray was, but another thing that bugged me about Gray was the moment before the rematch with Natsu and Zeref, when Gray tries to use Ice Shell on Zeref to prevent him from winning the war. This is, what, the third or fourth time Gray has tried this? Legit, what hasn't he tried this move on?
This jar of pickles won't open. Ice Shell.
And like every other attempt, he either chickens out or someone stops him. Great. Fantastic. This was absolutely needed, especially at this stage in Gray's development. Hell, at this point, he knows Juvia is alive, so his heart shouldn't be filled with as much anger/regret as it was during the fight with END, so this just amounts to wasting time again. So yeah, Gray was done dirty this arc, and it sucks because he was one of my favorite characters. Lucy and Urza were alright in this arc, so I'll give them a slight pass, and I like Gajiel and Levy, and everyone else in the hero side was just flat out unnecessary, especially Anna Hartfilia, who shows up near the end of the story and basically just brings up a way to beat Acnologia that ends up being a way to give him more power, and then comes back to life because screw it, yeah, she was totally needed here. So, yeah, let's move on to the Spriggan 12, and holy hell, this is the weakest group of fairy tale antagonists I've seen in a while. Agiel, Jacob, Invil, Nineheart, Wally Hito, Dimaria, Bloodman/Bradman, Gotserina, and Larke suffer from being either really bland characters like Bradman, Nineheart, and Invil, really forgettable characters like Larke, Jacob, and Dimaria, or really fucking annoying characters like Gotserina and Wall.
So how do you want to die? Think extra hard.
Shut the fuck up!
So, yeah, not much to say about those guys, so that just leaves me with August, Brandish, and Irene for the rest of the Spriggan 12. With August, I like the twist with him being the child of Mavis and Zeref, and it does make a lot of sense given his age and magical abilities, and his chemistry with Brandish and Zeref was fine, but he was very close to falling under the forgettable category until Brandish was forced to stab him, and he goes into his ultimate form. Then he decided to take more action and leave more of an impact when he was on screen, even if his fight with Jalal was friggin' off screen, and had there been less Spriggan, I'm sure he could have been better/further developed. Brandish leaves me conflicted. On the one hand, I like that her past ties into Lucy's past/her mother's death, and her chemistry with Lucy was nice to see in the beginning of the arc. But on the other hand, her constant flip-flopping on her allegiances got on my nerves throughout the arcs. Her second fight with Lucy was a waste of time since even Demaria admitted that Brandish wasn't even trying, and she did remove a lot of the tension as well at points by shrinking down wounds in the leg. So yeah, I don't know if I downright hate her for that or find her decent/good. Luckily, Irene's an easy one for me to pin down because simply put, I hate this character. She's unbearable at points, she's overhyped, her fight with her is a sucked balls, and I'll explain why in a moment. She's wildly inconsistent at points, and for a person of her status, the strongest female in the group, she's an absolute idiot. She acted surprised that Wendy could take control of her body, when literally a chapter ago she commented that Wendy was a Dragon Slayer/enchanter, which allowed her to transfer fucking bodies. So how the hell is she surprised that an enchanter can enchant herself into a body? Does she react this way to other obvious things? Water is wet. The sky is blue. Bakugo is a good boy. And now I can finally talk about the fight with her and Urza. Oh boy, I got a bunch of problems with these. So, let's go rapid fire. If you could transform into a dragon the whole time, why didn't you do that during the fight with Megaloviania? Or hell, why didn't you use that stronger magic to assault the area with meteors? How the hell could Urza destroy said meteor with minimal strength? Irene decided now to feel bad about Urza despite wanting to kill her numerous times? Piss off. If it slashed in half or reverted her back to normal, why didn't she try that in the 400 years she was alive? How the hell did Urza and Wendy kick Irene's ass despite Irene being regarded as the strongest mage? And yes, I know some have their issues with the Invil and Grey fight, but to me, the fight against Urza and Eileen is a headache to read through and was easily one of the worst parts of the arc. A lot of the moments with Irene in this fight felt like the last minute addition since there wasn't much build to a lot of these, and as a result, this feels like a fight that was meant to happen later on in the series so that this build up could happen, but it felt like either Hiro was pressured or he just simply ran out of time to make that happen. Then again, from what I've looked up, Hiro admitted he wasn't even thinking about the ending of Fairy Tail until the final chapter.
最終回を決めたのは最終回のアルバレス編っていうのを始める時ですね。
So when I actually decided on the conclusion of Fairy Tales, when I started the final chapter of Alvarez.
Oh wow. Wow. So you didn't even know the ending yourself until the last chapter.
全然考えてなかった。
I wasn't thinking about it at all, actually.
So I cannot completely surprised that planning out stuff for his story is low on Hiro's list of priorities. But yeah, I don't like Irene. Which leaves Zeref and Akalogia's characters, and honestly, Zeref was a fine enough antagonist in this arc, though I didn't like his last minute power, and Akalogia was only memorable because he killed a couple Spriggan members. Outside of that, he's yet another villain who's all about being the strongest, and his personality is really bland/forgettable as a result. Oh sure, they try to tack on some tragic backstory for Akalogia at the end, but it was too little too late, and it didn't make his character better in the slightest. But yeah, outside of that, every other character is either meh or just forgettable/flat. Let's wrap this up here. Overall, the final arc of Fairy Tail was a really weak finale to a series that already had a lot of problems. But is it the worst? Honestly, I'm not sure. While the story fights and characters are not handled that well in this arc, I was at least able to remember it more than some of the other terrible arcs in the series. Legit, Edalus was really tedious and bland. The Grand Magic games flat out sucked from start to finish from both fight scenes and story and characters. I will absolutely agree with you that this arc sucks, but as for the worst arc in the series, I have to disagree with that for the sole factor of it at least being memorable and slightly better written than the previously mentioned Edalus and Grand Magic games. Oh well, that concludes this review. I'm David Grimm, and thank you all so much for 75 episodes. Hopefully I'll continue doing more in the future, and I hope you'll stick around for more episodes down the line. See you then. So David, you want to try this again? Yes. I may only be able to use this power with the one hand, but I'm not going to give up. But how? Did you unlock a means to use Vincent and Yamada's abilities together? I only have Vincent's ability. The closest thing to Artemis's ability that I have is that my body can resist strong amounts of heat/fire. But I at least have a ferocity and drive to succeed. I will not give up. Wait.
You can't radiate something if it no longer exists!
Every attempt to try and give you that body has been when my mind has been calm, so maybe I just need to apply a little anger into it.
Okay, here we go. De-animate! Animate!
Well, David, I think you did it. Oh fuck. Nine said I probably should have clothed that mannequin first. God fucking damn it.